welcome to my podcast, Melancholy Guy Talks. And right now, I'm talking about recovery, living with addiction. In this podcast, I'm sharing my journey through life while being an open, polyamorous African American male living in recovery. I am the Melancholy Guy, Calvin, or CPJR if you know me. And today, I definitely believe that change I must or die I will. To learn more about the Melancholy Guy, go to Instagram and click the link in the bio. Also, with the donation of just $1, you can have access to my first series on ethical non-monogamy, the fun stuff that started my podcast journey. See my Patreon page for more info. Links in the show notes and the Instagram bio. So let's talk. Today's date is 5/17/2020, and it's been 120 days since I felt the need to pick up my drug of choice. Today's episode is Boundaries. I'm the only person responsible in my recovery, episode 59. This show will consist of 3 segments: the weekly check-in, the discussion topic, and Ask an Addict question of the week. This is the format that I experienced the many times I was in intensive outpatient treatment, so it seems appropriate now as this show is truly an integral part of my recovery process. Welcome or welcome back. Come on in, let's get seated. It's time for the check-in and let's talk about recovery. So this week, as in last week, it's been a good week for me. Um, I'm progressing well in my recovery. As I stated, I've been exactly 4 months clean today. I have not touched my drug of choice, and it's been a good journey. I could say now that I'm definitely in the early recovery, and I'm going to go back and talk about what early recovery is, but right now, I'm definitely in early recovery, and I am in an interesting place that I can report that the compulsion to use has gone. I can't say that the urge or the thought of using is completely gone, but the compulsion to use is completely gone. What I'm dealing with now is learning to live all over again, pretty much. It's learning to live as a responsible adult, learning to live someone who is in charge of their emotions, someone who makes choices based on reason and logic, and just not based on emotion, and learning to manage my triggers. One thing I've learned through this process is I used to think that, or I used to say that money was my biggest trigger, which is still true to this day. But not only that, but I have emotional triggers. Things that if I let go unchecked will definitely jackpot me in a minute. Not dealing with your spirituality, where you are, who you're around. Not, as I've been saying in this podcast before, not centering myself, not bringing myself from any um, over the edge or out of the way thinking back to where I know I need to be or where I should be, which is in this, which is in the center of my thoughts, and keeping my thoughts present on what's happening now. That's been a work, and this is actually the first time in a long time, if not ever, that I've been in this place. So you know, I'm moving, right? Uh, Kimberly's closed on her condo. I've signed the lease, and I have the keys. I have the keys to our place that we'll be moving in, and the renovations have been started. And there's a lot of moving parts to bringing two households together as one. Um, this week will be the last episode ever recorded of the Melancholy Guy in this place. And the next time you'll hear this, a new episode, episode 60, which will be a special treat, will be in the Zindan. That's what we're calling our new place. And that's where we'll be recording the first episode, or the 60th episode, but the first episode there. In a couple weeks, I'm going to take next week off because Kimberly's officially moving on that date, and I'm officially moving the following week. So it's just a lot of moving parts, and I don't want to be too anxious. Like, I'm learning as an adult, I can't do everything. So I had to take some time off and make sure that my energy is going to the correct place. But I will put up an episode. If anyone's listening, I will put a throwback episode from the first series on ethical non-monogamy. If you want to hear some new content, I'll definitely have some content up. Um, and I'll try to make it a juicy episode, something that will entertain, if not titillate, people who want to listen to the fun stuff that started it all. So, as you can tell, the check-in for me is that I'm in a good place. I feel mentally healthy, as mentally healthy I think as possible in this stage. I probably have some areas that I should and could tighten up on physically because of the pandemic. I'm definitely not, getting in my steps. I'm exercising. Just pretty much staying inside because of the current situation. One thing I used to do is walk a lot I'm talking a lot, right, on the check-in, but walking a lot as I go to work, and I just haven't been able to do that because of the pandemic. So that's an area that I definitely need to tighten up on. Something that's important. Your physical health is important when dealing with recovery. But mentally, I think that I am in a good place because I'm basically am taking care of myself every day. And with that, I want to talk about how I come up with the episodes too. Like this week's episode is on boundaries. If you haven't caught that from the intro, this week's episode will be the discussion topic for the week will be boundaries. And if you remember, last week's episode was on family and recovery. And boundaries during recovery is another important thing. And the way I come up, basically, the way I come up with the episode topics is, or the topics for our discussions in the group, is that I basically just think about my life and where I am, And one thing that I know in my past, as I've attempted to either become clean or get in recovery, with however you want to say it, is I've often had a problem with setting boundaries or accepting boundaries. And that's something that I think that's I'm going to read, of course, from a subject that's very important for an addict, and basically from a recovering addict. And basically, what I'm doing is I'm actually talking with you through my addiction, right? My recovery. Sorry, my recovery. These are the issues that a recovering addict probably will be or should be dealing with as they're waking up, or as after you come through like the withdrawals, after you start getting clean time, after you start cutting people out of your life that shouldn't be your life, personal, people, places, and things. After you start dealing with all that, you start dealing with like real life, like what's my life going to look like going forward. And that for me has been a stumbling block because I had life in place, and this is me, right? Not an expert. I'm gonna go into this subject matter anyway. I already had life in place, right? And I say that when family is the addiction is a family disease, right? And as I'm starting to talk about going into the subject matter, I am not an expert, right? I'm just a dude with 120 days clean. My program is my program. It's not perfect, but it was working for me one day at a time. So as I've come into, I'm saying, when I go back to what I was saying, that is that addiction is a family disease, right? So basically, if you're with someone who's an addict and you're using, you're affected, right? So as that person, well, for whatever reason, they hit rock bottom and you decide to stay, right? You can't do their recovery for them. There has to be boundaries set. And one thing that is hard to do as an addict is accept, or as a family member or loved one, wife, daughter, mother, sister, brother, whatever, is accept that person's boundaries, right? Because you can't. There's trust problems, there's trust issues, and you have to really look at that C word, codependency, and go get some as they're going through, either recovery. They're going to groups and they're going to get the mental talk to a therapist and getting mental help, working on their mental health and their mind and getting it back together, you should be doing the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Because you're gonna have to, because you're gonna see things that's probably in their program that you think they need to tighten up, but it's still their responsibility, right? Recovery is, you cannot do recovery for someone. All right, there's no way. Many times I hear the questions, "What can I do to help my boyfriend in the groups and stuff like that? What can I do to help my girlfriend that come in the group? You know, boyfriend, girlfriend, son, daughter, taking them through hell, and they're asking the community of addicts what they can do. All we could do is feel sorry for you, because we know the hell you're going through, and there's nothing that you can do other than love them and take care of yourself and set up boundaries for yourself. So I'm gonna go into the subject matter, and I think I put some show notes, but I found some information that I want to read, and I found this, how to establish personal boundaries in recovery, because it's going to be important. And I found this from some recovery home. It's called you. There's so many different recovery homes. I'm not going to mention the name of it, where I found it from, but they wrote up this nice little piece about boundaries, because boundaries are important. And but I want to read this first part. Each and every one of us is entitled to our own thoughts, opinions, beliefs, and personal space. In recovery, it's especially important that you learn how to value yourself in a way that is not dependent on the view of other people. It's not dependent on the view other people have of you, right? That's, to me, that's like people pleasing. That's something that I've dealt with, being in a marriage and being an addict, and trying to bounce back after whatever amount of use, and trying to be back to that person that I think that they see that I should be, right? I'm trying to be whatever image that I portrayed myself before this relapse, before this use. And I'm not doing what I need to do to actually take care of myself. What I'm doing is I'm doing what I need to do to get back in their good graces, to be what they want me to be or need me to be, because what I promised them that I would be, right? That has never gotten me any type of recovery, and it just won't, because that's not how you are going to do it. Because you're gonna do shortcuts. You're gonna do things that aren't healthy for you. And what's gonna happen is, what's happened for me in the past is I built up resentments. And resentments is another trigger. It's a trigger. It's a big trigger for me. And like I said before in the past episode, if I can't talk to you about these resentments and we can work it out and go forward, that's a boundary for me, right? I gotta cut you out of my life, and I'm gonna talk about establishing boundaries. I want to talk about exactly what boundaries are. And it's another thing I want to say about ethical non-monogamy in my life, and ethical non-monogamy is that really taught me. I didn't know anything about boundaries before. I don't know if it was talked about in a group I was in before or anything like that, but I don't never remember. And it could have been because I was a drug addict. I don't know. I didn't hear boundaries. So um, I'm telling you that it's important. But personal boundaries are physical, mental, and emotional limits and rules. I don't like the word rules. We set for ourselves. Ourselves. It's a boundary. Is something that you set for you. These rules and limits help us define who we are by protecting ourselves against manipulations and creating a standard by which our self-worth and our integrity is communicating. So, an example of a boundary. But I want to read on for a minute. While we are deep in our addiction, you most likely had a very unhealthy you most likely had very unhealthy boundaries. For many individuals, this presents itself as being um, unable to tell a friend no, refusing to ask for help, or compromising personal beliefs due to fear to a beliefs due to a fear rejection. I'm gonna read that over again. Sorry about this. I don't know why I'm having a hard time reading tonight. While you are deep in your addiction, you most likely have very unhealthy boundaries. For many individuals, this represents itself as being unable to tell a friend no, refusing to ask for help, or compromising beliefs due to a fear of rejection. You may have been raised in a home with boundaries that were either much too strict, which led to the development of suppressed emotions and distant relationships, or your upbringing may have been comprised of boundaries that were nearly non existent, which makes it difficult to develop a sense of self. Even as an adult, these old patterns may be carried over into relationships and behaviors, resulting in anxiety, depression, or addiction. To address these contributing factors of your addiction, to fully address these contributing factors of your addiction and flourish in recovery, you must learn how to define and implement your personal boundaries. So, let me say, like, okay, what's a boundary? Like, what's an example of a boundary? The example of a boundary is I don't allow people in my life that lie. Right? That could be a boundary. So if you lie to me, that's fine. You just can't be in my life. Right? That's a boundary. Like, I don't have any problems with you. You can lie yourself crazy, but you can't lie to me. Right? I am an openly polyamorous African American male. Right? A personal boundary of mine is I am non monogamous. You cannot tell me that we're in a monogamous relationship because that is something that I don't do. If you want to be in a monogamous relationship, so this is about authentic, me being authentic too, and me telling you what I'm about, and then you deciding what you want to do. So, if I say that I am an addict and I am in recovery, what does that mean? That means I don't drink. That means I don't do drugs. That means if you drink or do drugs and you decide to be in my life, you must understand that I don't want it around me, or if I do want it around me, there is a certain limit. You don't offer it to me, you don't pressure me about it, and if you do, then I have to decide what to do. That's my responsibility to. It's not my responsibility to tell you to stop drinking. It's not your responsibility to tell me to drink, right? Or what I need to do to stop drinking. It is my responsibility to tell you. And then if you decide to do what you want to do, it is my responsibility to remove myself from that situation. If I stay in that situation, then that's how codependency develops and it looks. That's when shit gets crazy. So basically, what you see on a lot of like TV shows and reality shows, you see a whole bunch of codependencies and just crazy behavior where there's no boundaries. You know what I mean? Like there's nobody. There's people saying that don't cheat on me or something like that. If you love me, you wouldn't cheat. That's fine. So when they do cheat, what do you do? Right? You don't. You see what I'm saying? Like if you had healthy boundaries, if you was with somebody that was a cheater, you would leave them. It would be, and that sounds like cold and cut and dry and all this. How do you love somebody? You love yourself. You have to love yourself more than you love someone. If you don't love yourself, how can you love someone else? And I think that's what boundaries are about. It's about loving yourself, so that you can love others in a healthy way. And if you don't, that's the lesson that you should learn in life, right? But in recovery, it becomes even more important because for me, as back in my past, like I said before, um, I would be in relationships and then this would come out, and I would try to, uh, and many times, this is not a blame game or anything like that, but many times I would try to get some momentum going with recovery, but because I'm in a relationship and someone's looking at my whatever I'm doing that I think is part of my recovery. Let's say I remember specifically that I was supposed to go, or that they recommended that I go to meetings 3 or 4 times a week, and I was trying to do that, but uh, somebody that I was in a relationship with said that's too much. What about home? And that's the kind of shit that like hit me, and I remember I'm feeling this emotion that hit me so hard because it's not there's no home if I'm not recovered. There's no possibility of home. You know what I'm saying? Understand that this is like an addict is fighting for their life, and if you aren't able to listen to that, if you aren't going to put yourself in recovery, or go to Al-Anon or some type of other therapy or something like that, just don't go. And I'm going to talk about this and I'm going to ask an addict, but if you aren't going to be healthy, in your first thing you must do if you decide to go with someone down the road of recovery is, are you going to take care of yourself? Right? Because as the addict is changing and becoming better, or not, sorry, as the addict is recovering, changing. One thing I say in my intro is, change I must or die I will. And I was saying to Kimberly this weekend, just laying chilling in bed on Saturday for a nap before we went out and did some stuff. Um, I was just sitting there thinking, I'm like, I'm not the same person that I used to be. Because this I'm sitting here chilling. I'm happy. Everything is good. I work and I come home and I'm chill. And I couldn't last year I couldn't think of that. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't imagine ever being in a peaceful, beautiful, loving relationship again. I just didn't see it. And for other reason, I was so lost I couldn't see it. You know what I'm saying? The fog of abuse, drug abuse, had messed up my mind so much I couldn't see it. And it's like just these 4 months, it's like I feel completely different because I'm able to. There's a thing in the Bible that I often say. Like I said, I'm not a Christian anymore, but there's some there's just particular scriptures and sayings and parables and whatever stuck to me is, seek peace, pursue it. And it's like that is like so much a part of who I am, that I felt that, and it's like I can't. That's why it's like I have to have a boundaries to the point where if you don't align with that, and this is self responsibility. Like I said in the title, man, this is my responsibility. If I can't, if people aren't able to align with that and be in my life, then I have to cut them off because this is my responsibility. My recovery, your recovery, anyone's recovery from whatever it is your health is your responsibility. If you go out here tomorrow and get COVID right tomorrow without having to go to a job as an essential worker, you fucked up because now you did that. You made that decision to go out there after they've told you over and over how contagious this is. And so it's like if you don't take the responsibility and all this craziness across the country, and I'm not gonna get political, but if you don't take the responsibility for your health and you get COVID and get sick and spread it to your family and all this, is yours. You did it. You didn't set boundaries for yourself. You didn't love yourself enough to look out for yourself or your people, and that's basically, I think that what's hitting me the most. And I just want to read through some examples of healthy and unhealthy boundaries laid out in this document. And a lot of these things is I could see like in the later years past my marriages and then into my single life and ethical non-monogamy life. An unhealthy boundary would be jumping into new relationships impulsively without thinking. This is the intersection for me because I was in a lot of relationships in E&M or ethical non-monogamy. Is basically I was saying that if you heard a term called relationship anarchy, I was saying that I was someone who had relationship anarchy tendencies, because I like to see where things go. Like I would look at somebody and say, I don't know, I just don't, I'm not really feeling the vibe, but you know what, I'll let it go. I'll see what happens, and then even if I'm getting hit in the head with red flags and stuff, I'm just gonna go ahead on full steam because it'll work itself out one way or another. We'll either be friends, but that's just a trap. And then a healthy boundary, a healthy example, a healthy boundary would be thinking about the beliefs, thinking about the benefits and drawbacks of a relationship with someone. And that's like weighing the pros and cons, and that's something that I see play out that Kimberly does. Is she actually writes out pros and cons for like almost everything she does. And at first I thought it was cute, but I'm like, okay, I see what's going on here. She's actually methodically thinking about things and implementing healthy boundaries in her life, um, instead of just willy nilly letting the winds take you and the vibe and all that shit. Like I believe in the vibe, believe me, and I believe in connections and energy and all that shit. But if somebody's toxic, they toxic, right? That's just there's no way around it. Um, and just and hoping that it gets better is just dumb. It just never worked out. And then me as someone who has triggers, and as an addict, you have these triggers, and if you just let people trip over them, and you keep trying to figure out what's happening, it's probably because you just not are being healthy and setting up boundaries, man. Another one is ignoring your own personal beliefs and values to make someone else happy, and that's people pleasing. And I probably have a whole episode on people pleasing, because that was definitely something that was in my past. And the healthy was in maintaining your own personal values despite what other people may think of you, and that's being true to yourself, right? There's something that's preached or talked about a lot in ethical non-monogamy is being open, honest, and authentic. You want to live your open and most open and authentic life, and that's something that else helped me get to this point. Here is just seeing people um, find like real happiness, coming out, being open, whatever, gay, lesbian, bi, LBGTQIA, whatever, all of them. Finding out who you are, taking that time for that self exploration, and then accepting that, and then presenting that to the world, and then finding connections that are true and authentic, and finding real happiness and shit. That's what I'm talking about. And that's what I thought I was on the path to doing, except the one thing that I would never do is accept the fact that I am a recovering addict and I have to do the work of recovery every day in order to live a life that is not only going to be healthy and pleasing for me, but healthy and pleasing for my partners. Like, again, what I was saying today is like, um, my program is tight, but one thing that I'm trying to do is be the best person and partner that I can to someone who's worthy of it, and that uplifts me. That gives me purpose. You know what I'm saying? That gives me peace, and that's important. Um. Okay, so that's gonna leave it right there with that, and thank you for listening to I don't know, my rant or whatever that was. I hope you got something out of it. But boundaries are definitely important. It's gonna be important for an addict. It's important for just regular people. You teach people how to treat you. That's something I used to say all the time in the groups for ethical non-monogamy. You teach people how to treat you, right? By letting stuff go. If someone's doing something to you, um, you have the responsibility to tell them you don't like it, and then after that, you have the responsibility to either get them out of your life or just let it go on. And if you're an addict, that's probably an area that you're going to be triggered in. And if you're using, that's probably going to keep you using. And if you're in recovery, that's going to be the road to relapse. That's it. That's done. All right, so I'm going to leave it there. And then I'm going to go into my next last segment, Ask an Addict. And again, I post a question on Instagram asking for if you have a question that you want to ask an addict. I posted on Saturday. This week I didn't get a chance to post it till Sunday morning. I didn't get any questions, so I went out and found a question out in the groups that I'm in, somewhere out in social media in the ether. So I'm going to answer this question. I'm going to read it as presented, and then I'm going to present my answer. So, my husband is in prison. I'm on house arrest for a case I took for him. He told me for a year he wanted a divorce, so I went on with life like I was single. On December 25th, I overdosed on purpose, and thank God I was found. I was found by my mom, by my roommate. She called 911. I went to jail for 90 days for active warrants. Now, like I said, I'm on house arrest at his mom's. I'm being loyal. I'm still sober. I'm having regular visits with my kids. I'm working about to buy a car on all on my own. He decided yesterday he wants a divorce again, and I can't mentally handle this much more. I had my first urge to use in 6 months, um, and I want to get high tonight. When will these feelings pass, or will they? I'm falling apart. Someone please help me. I don't want to go backwards. And if you just listen to what I just said for the last 20 minutes or so, this is an example of someone who doesn't have boundaries. I'll answer the question right away. When will these feelings pass, or will they? When? When they do. When you do the work. And yes, they will. When you do the work. Uh, and get in recovery, real recovery. The feelings do fade. They do pass. But you must do the work. So, if you look at this person's life, she's in and out of prison, dealing with someone who's still in prison, who's doing all kind of things. This is the drama, and the reason I read this because this is the drama that I used to hear dealing with other addicts. I mean, this is just the life of addicts. You know what I mean? Like this is the drama that you hear about. And you can hear this in regular people's lives too. But it's like all that, and you're wondering when will the last part of the question is when will these feelings pass? And if you listen to her part, she was doing good until she just let someone back in her life that's toxic, right? And who doesn't know boundaries, that's still yanking her chain, and now she's back to the point that she wants to use again. And I pray that that she got the answers that she wanted in the group. But me myself, I'm like, I'm cold about it. Probably too much. I'm like block, get a bit of it, walk away. And I know that people have kids and stuff like that, but it's just for the time being. You gotta do what you need to do for the time being. And that if people need to be out of your life, they need to be out of your life because your recovery must come first. Um, so yeah, feelings are past, and when you start doing the work and get into some real recovery, because that's the only way mine did. And time heals a lot. But the only way to get that time is to identify your triggers, get into some real recovery, and get your spirit restored, right? So that's gonna be it for this episode. Thank you for listening, but I must, as always, take a moment for the still suffering addict. I hope that if you are listening to this and you're an addict, you heard something that may have resonated with you. If you're in the situation that I've been in and was unable to establish boundaries, just had all kind of drama going on around you on a daily basis, know that you can start being healthy today and get help, man. And I'm gonna tell you this though: the moment you start setting boundaries, people gonna get mad because they're used to getting their way with you and around you. And the thing is, you may have to leave where you are and seek something else. Seek peace, pursue it. Like that's the only way. If you're in a lot of drama, it's just not gonna. You're just not gonna. As an addict, you just not. It's just go. It's just gonna keep going. So I pray that you know, that you find the courage and the strength to start taking care of yourself, man. Because it's your responsibility. It's my responsibility. My recovery is my responsibility. And until this year, till I took responsibility and set my intentions and started looking at where I want to go and saying out loud what I want to do and where I want to go. And if you didn't like it, you gotta go. And if you do, let's go. Let's work. All right. So that's about it. I hope that you get some help. You can make it, and you can be clean one day at a time, just like me. And it gets better. So if you have any questions about living in with recovery or just need someone to talk to, drop me an email at cpiercejr@gmail.com. I will respond to you there, or I will read your question on the show, or drop me a DM on Instagram, the Melancholy Guy. Okay, that's gonna do it for this week. Thank you for listening. I won't be back next week. I'm moving. Next podcast you will hear will be from the Zen Den special show. Next week you will hear a throwback show. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week, or I'll see you in 2 weeks. Always remember, but always, see, this is key for me. Always remember to love and respect yourself first, and everything else will take care of itself. Peace and namaste.